Okay, it's Sunday, which means against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. But before we do that, there was another update to the PTR, which had some more stuff on it. So let's look at that first, and this was on February 28th. So, Junkrat's frag launcher impact damage increased from 40 to 60. Hooray! It's an objective buff. Junkrat gets to do more damage, which is very nice for him. He did end up getting overly nerfed a while ago. I don't think it put him into the point of unplayability or anything, but after he became very strong, he did then get overly nerfed, so it's nice that he's getting a little bit of power back, though I do think, honestly, you could just make the bombs bigger again, and that wouldn't be the end of the world. But we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to another one. So Lucio, basically, we've decided we don't like speed boost now, because speed boost amplification reduced from 70% to 50%, and the regular speed boost effect has been reduced from 30% to 20%. So, fuck the speed boost, basically, is the idea here. But he is faster while he's on the wall, 40% rather than 20% now, so that's nice. And Soundwave now counts towards offensive assists. So we've decided we don't like speed boost anymore. Basically, just kind of like, what can we do to make the 3-3 comps less appealing, pretty much? What can we do? We don't want to nerf the tanks again, because they're the most sensitive players in the entire world. So what do we do instead? We'll nerf the supports, who are also sensitive, but mostly at this point just resigned to their fate of, yeah, I guess the nerfs are just gonna come every now and then, aren't they? That's just gonna be what happens to us. Every now and then I just look over at the other supports and one of them gets crushed by a giant fucking hammer. Such is life, you know? So they've decided to nerf Lucio now. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think there's any need to nerf the speed boost, really, but, you know, this is one of those changes that is not based around the competitive ladder. This is based around, like, very high elo and professional play. That's what this change is based on. So, hey, you know, we've already seen that. That's, you know, whatever. Oh, Reaper. Oh no. People have been complaining a lot. It must have been very hard for them to resist the urge to just reduce Reaper's healing back to what it was previously and just completely revert the changes. I am honestly surprised they didn't. When I saw this, I expected it to just go back to how it was previously, but they have decided to go with an incremental change rather than just scrapping the entire idea. So, good job, Blizzard, for having some self-restraint for once. You know, self-restraint. So, Zarya, alternate fire explosion radius reduced from 3 meters, 2 meters and 3 meters, to 1 meters, 2 meters, based on energy. And just why? Just why, basically? Why are we doing this to Zarya? It seems so unnecessary. The developer comments, Zarya's damage greatly increases when at high energy, while also gaining increased beam slide and a larger explosion radius. This often allowed Zarya to deal too much damage and made the explosions from the alternate fire on her particle cannon nearly impossible to avoid. This change will still allow Zarya to deal a lot of damage, but it makes it more difficult to actually apply the damage. So, you know, my issue is just basically why? Because if Zarya got to high energy, she should just be rewarded for being at high energy. I don't see the need to nerf it in this way. I guess, like, really, to me, it's just like, Zarya's too good at poking, and we don't really like that, so we're gonna make her poke less good, pretty much, because if the Zarya's right on top of you, she's not gonna miss you anyway, and if she's right on top of you at high charge, unless you're somebody hard to hit, she's gonna laser you, because that's more damage, right? And then try to finish you off with the right click. So, to me, it would be a lot more honest sounding if the comments read, we don't like how good she is at poking. We don't want her to poke as good anymore, so now her poke range is less good, or her poke is easier to miss. But no, it's, you know, too easy to do damage at high charge. It's almost as if being high charge, she's meant to be able to do a lot of damage to people very quickly. Unbelievable is that. I don't know. I think it's the kind of thing people will look at and scoff at, but I think that the change is, it'll be more impactful than it looks like it will on paper, pretty much. And then Zenyatta. His Orb of Destruction gets to do 2 more damage, which is very exciting for Zenyatta players, I'm sure. And Orb of Discord is now 5% less good. Discord Orb is very strong, so I understand the desire to nerf it. I'm just surprised they didn't nerf it more again, because whenever I see a small change from Blizzard, or an attempt at like, oh, well, this number's obviously wrong. Like, with Reaper, I was like, oh, they didn't just revert it. Incredible job, boys. Now I'm like, wow, they decided something was bad and didn't just go, Orb of Discord now does 15% more damage. You know, that's the kind of response I expect from Blizzard. So I'm amazed that they only went 5% on Discord. So hey, look at that. Some improvements in the ways that we attempt to adjust things. Isn't that incredible? I just always think about, like, that Mercy change they tried once where they were like, alright, so we don't, the boost number here isn't very good, let's try putting it up here. Well, that number fucked up completely. Put it back to where we started. Scrap the whole idea entirely. You know, there's a few points in between there and there. Good job, team. Again, I don't think the Zenyatta really deserves to be nerfed, but again, hey, how can we like, find ways to make the 3-3 comps less appealing? Let's just keep nerfing the supports, right? We've nerfed a few of the tanks now, let's nerf a few of the supports as well, and see if that makes it take, pretty much. That's my read on it anyway. But I am an extremely cynical person, so maybe it's just me. So now on to Reddit. You know, only like 10 minutes in. Good job, team. Oh look, is Zari's nade nerf too much? Yeah. I haven't tested PTR, my worry, I can't say this nerf, how heavy this nerf is, because I get energy so fast, radius increases. And even when I shoot nades at 0% energy, the radius is small, and the damage is so low that the damage is nearly irrelevant. People who don't play her will be blind here and dismiss critics, but if the tests were true, you'll be spending 25% of your ammo to do less damage and hit almost no one unless it's a direct hit. It's a 50% up to 33%, it's huge. Junkrat received 33% radius reduction to the hitbox of nades, and it meant almost 55% radius reduction to the sphere volume. Oh, fuck, math. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's true, there's math involved, isn't there? Because I always think about it in a flat, plane sense, where I'm like, oh yeah, the circle got smaller, but it's the sphere gets smaller, isn't it? And just analyze how bad the current grenade launcher is. Now, Zarya will directly hitting fewer people, smaller radius, and effectively doing less damage to them fall off. So, how impactful is this nerf? We'll see. I do think it'll be a bigger nerf than it looks on paper. PTR changes release date. Since we also have a new hero on the road, do we also need to wait that time for the PTR changes for the other heroes? Or will they hit live before the hero? They'll probably hit live at the same time, but they might hit live a little bit before then. It's gone both ways previously. When you have a team that goes 3 DPS, what should the other 3 go? I tank support, and I'm never sure if we should go 2 support, 1 tank, or 1 tank, 2 support. Would 1 main healer, 1 main tank, and a bridge be good enough? I think that 1 tank, 2 healers is the best thing you can do. I used to say the reverse of this. I used to think that 2 tanks and 1 healer was better, because if you only have 1 tank, your front line is significantly weaker. And that's still true, but if you only have one healer, the one healer has to be a main healer. That healer will be more stressed, trying to keep up with 5 people by themselves. And if you only have one healer and it's the main healer, you don't get to have an off healer, which means you don't get to have the damage utility they bring and the defensive ultimates as well. So, I think 1 tank, 2 healers is the best thing you can do. 1 main healer, 1 main tank, and Bridget is kind of like, well, we'll split the difference, right? But I do think just 1 tank, 2 healers is the best thing you can do. Right role to play when nobody on the team is on comms. I'm a silver player, nobody is in comms for the majority of games. It doesn't matter. Like, there's like, no one role really that's better. I guess flanker, but, like, it doesn't matter that much, my dude. You can play any of the roles without comms. Wrecking Ball general tips? I don't know enough about Hammond, to be honest with you, to give general tips like that. Need tips on how to play Zen more effectively. 3250 by playing Ana Zen. My Ana win rate is at 83%, and my Zen win rate is less than 40%, so a little bit depressing sounding, yes. The only mistake I feel like I'm making a lot with Zen is overextending. What are common mistakes Zen players make that I probably am also doing? And do you just have some general tips on playing Zen? Well, I think Zenyatta players overvalue the right-click to a, frankly, ridiculous degree, to the extent that they can be actively fighting somebody right in front of their face, and they'll still go, let's charge up the right-click anyway, though. When, like, the person's still in front of them and never left their line of sight, and they should just be clicking on them, but they're like, let's just charge up the right-click anyway, because, man, if I get all of these headshots, that's gonna feel so good. So overvaluing the right-click's a really common one. The other, like, really common one is just not keeping track of if your orbs are up, pretty much, because their orbs will fall off to somebody, and they'll just take a really long time to put one of the orbs back up again, whichever one it is, Harmony or Discord. It'll fall off of someone from line of sight, they won't notice, and then they'll just have one of their orbs not doing anything for a really long time, which is not good efficiency. Also tend to pick the wrong targets with Harmony Orb quite frequently, because they'll just kind of like put it on the main tank and then just let it sit there for the rest of the game, basically. But you should be trying to prioritize like the flankers and the DPS's Zenyatta, really, and the other healer, because Zenyatta's very bad at healing a tank up quickly, but main healers are all much, much better at that than Zenyatta is, so you should be focusing on the healing up the chip damage on the other heroes, and also just like trying to work with the flankers, basically, because one of the draws of Zenyatta is that he's really good with the flankers because he can heal them while they're out of line of sight, which is not something anybody else can do, really, unless you count like the splash on Ana's grenade or something. So those are like the common ones that I see. And overextending happens a lot because, you know, Zen's really easy to kill. Another really common one, actually, is they'll use Transcendence, and then as Transcendence is ending, they won't back up, because you don't want to come out of Transcendence in front of the enemy team. Because they'll go, like, you know, you use Transcendence, you've got to run up to be with your team and all that, you know, obviously. But then as it's ending, you want to back up again, so that you're not right in front of the entire enemy team right as Transcendence ends, because then they're gonna go, oh look, Zenyatta, and then you'll be very unhappy about it, so you should back up as Trance is ending. Other general tips, I mean, Zenyatta's a pretty straightforward hero in terms of actually playing, so it's kind of just like, you know, really generic stuff like stick with your team, watch for flankers, try to use your ult, like, look at the enemy team and think, alright, which ults do I need to try and counter with my ult, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, Zenyatta himself is really straightforward, so I don't have many general tips that don't just sound super generic, because it's just like generic stuff for him. He doesn't do anything too fancy, really, to be honest with you. So that's pretty much all I got for you. A guide to high ground and why it is strong. Can we get a TLDR on this one? No TLDR? Yeah. I like how there's actually an imager link in there. How high ground can be used as cover? Yeah, it turns out if they're below you, and you're on the high ground, if you step back, the floor becomes cover. Isn't that incredible? High ground is very strong. It's true. Abuse high ground. Question about main tanks. How do I pay more attention to my team? I find a lot of the time I find them dying while I try to engage, but after analyzing some gameplay of mine, I've noticed that many times things may have been different if I was there to help them against the annoying Tracer Genji. That's not really Reinhardt's job, but, you know, sometimes you want to help with the Genji, but, like, versus, like, the Tracer, there's usually not a lot you can do, unless the Tracer just happens to blink right next to you. Same with Genji. It's not really Reinhardt's job to worry about the flankers. That's meant to be the off-tank's job, really, but... So, you know, we don't often live in an ideal world, so you will have to help with them more than you want to. That's true, but ideally, that wouldn't be you that has to deal with those kinds of heroes. The problem is, how do I pay attention to them without messing up with my Reinhardt versus Reinhardt mind games? I mean, that's a hard question to answer, because fundamentally the question is, how do I get better at processing multiple things at the same time, isn't it? I mean, you know, you can turn around and look at them without actually physically turning and looking around, because you can reverse your camera while you're holding your shield up now, which is very nice. Just hold left click while you're holding the shield up, and you can rotate your camera with the mouse. It's a very cool feature they added, that I forget is there frequently still. I mean... You just look back at them now and then, and if anything bad is happening back there, you go like, well, can I help them with that feasibly? Or should I still just be worrying about what's going on over there? Because, more than because the paying attention to them is literally just thinking to yourself every now and then, I should look back at my team and see what's going on back there. You know, like checking your rearview mirror in a car or something. It's like, yeah, hey, you know, what's going on back there? Maybe I should look now and then. Like, the bigger issue is deciding on if you should help them or not, because, especially if you're staring at another Reinhardt, like, you taking your shield down to go and, like, do something behind you, suddenly makes it a lot easier for the Reinhardt to earth-shatter your team. And that's a very difficult question to answer, because you pretty much have to think to yourself, well, if I take my shield down right now, what's the worst thing that can happen? And the worst thing that can happen is often my team will get earth-shattered, so you end up in a difficult position a lot of the time there. This is why I'm saying, ideally it's not you that has to deal with the Tracer and the Genji, because you want to be worried about the front line as the main tank. Like, how to pay more attention, you know, you can do stuff like, there are websites out there where you can set up a metronome, so you could, like, set up a metronome to tome every now and then, and when you hear it tome, you go, alright, that's when I'm going to look back at my team, and then the theory is that after doing that for long enough, you won't need the metronome anymore, because it'll just be second nature to look back when you won't need reminding to do so. But, like, other than that, you know, for paying attention, you just gotta tell yourself to look back, man. It's just about processing more things at the same time, which is a hard thing to give people advice for, really, other than just try and look around more frequently. Again, it's more about deciding what to do when the other Reinhardt's looking at you, which is also difficult to answer because there's a lot of things that go into it. You pretty much just have to ask yourself, you know, am I likely to get my team earth-shattered if I do this? And if the answer is yes, then you probably can't really help with the situation, because you might end up killing your team. You can try and bait it really quick, because if somebody on the enemy team is doing stuff behind you, and you turn around for a second, the enemy Reinhardt's gonna go, oh, he's turning to look at them now, so I can earth-shatter. So you can literally just take your shield down, rotate 180, and then immediately rotate 180 again, and block the earth-shatter, because you'll go, oh, he's turning around to look at the Genji, and then you just block it, and then you're more free to do whatever. So you can do that kind of stuff, but, other than that, you know, you guys can weigh it up at the time. What am I supposed to do when I know the enemy has ultimates? If it's a really strong ultimate, Zarya, Genji, Zen, Lucio, etc., I call them out to my team, and hope we have a response to them. this is it, or is there something I can do instead of relying 100% on my teammates? Sometimes I try to shatter Genjis when they use Blade, but I always miss. Hey, you can do that, but hey, it's hard to hit the Genji. Advice for that one is wait till the Genji dashes, because that's his mobility. So once he's dashed up to someone to try and cut them. So he's probably not going to dash again for a little second, right? So you can just wait for him to dash, and then Earth Shatter him as soon as he ends the dash. Because he's probably not going to do any more funky movement right after that. But you can do that. That's fair enough to try and kill the Genji. Also, should I call out all ults or just the game-changing ones? I mean, it's never gonna really hurt to call out ultimates, even if it isn't like a huge ultimate a lot of the time. Like, it's never gonna be bad, but, I mean, sometimes people will get annoyed by it as well. And, though, the very blunt answer to this question is kinda yeah, you have to rely on your teammates. Because Reinhardt just, like, can't counter many things. I'm assuming this is from the position of Reinhardt, but, like, none of the other main tanks are very good at countering a lot of ultimates either. Like, there's just only so many things you as Reinhardt can counter, ultimate-wise. So, yeah, you know, like, if they use Trance, there's nothing you can do about that. If they use Graviton, you can hold your shield up against the enemy time, like maybe try and get a counter Earth Shatter off if you're in a position to do so, but that's quite rare that you're actually in a good position to do that. And that's kind of it, you know, like, Pharah uses Barrage, you can hold your shield up. Tracer uses Pulse Bomb, you can try and shield the bomb from, like, if it's on the ground, or, like, shield other people if the person that got stuck is kind of in the middle of everybody, but, like, there's only so much you can do. Like, Reinhardt can counter ultimates, like, that are channeled effect, so, like, McCree, you know, you can Earth Shatter the guy, stop it, you can, counter another Reinhardt's Earth Shatter, like, if you fail to block yours but didn't get hit for one reason or another, you can still Earth Shatter their team as they try and capitalize off that Earth Shatter. If, like, Lucio uses Sound Barrier, they're gonna run right at you, so you can Earth Shatter them as they run in, you know, there's stuff like that, but there's only so many things you as Reinhardt have a response to. So you're, you know, in a lot of cases, yeah, you are gonna have to rely on your teammates, because the most you can do is block it, try and kill it. If it's something like Genji's Dragon Blade, you can try and kill the Genji. You know, like, block ultimates, like Tac Visor, Earth Shatter, Self-Destruct, you know? But that's kind of it. Those are your options, and, you know, you can use Earth Shatter as well as a counter, but, like, that's kind of it. So, basically, yeah, you do have to rely on your teammates. The most you can do is call them out and, like, maybe offer a suggestion, but, like, there's only so much Reinhardt can do. What to do when there's someone carrying the game on the enemy's team, but because of hero limitations, I can't kill him. For example, an Ana in a really good position being pocketed by the other support. If I was a DPS, I could just swap to a Widow and click on their heads, but how can I do it without messing up the composition? I mean, you try and find the best thing you can within your role, basically. Like, if it's that situation where it's the Ana, you can change to Winston, who is still a main tank and has more ways to deal with Ana than Reinhardt does, so you can do that. But, like, you know, that's all you can do, is you can try and switch to something within your role, so you aren't, like, messing up the team composition, basically, but, like, other than that, your alternatives are just try to talk to your teammates, as terrible as that is. You know? Like, what, like, I can't, there's no magic answer to that, right? There's no magic answer like, well, you're playing Reinhardt and Pharah's causing your team trouble, so here's what you can do as Reinhardt to stop the Pharah. Like, you know, that answer doesn't exist, basically, so you can just try and change to something else within your role so that you haven't messed up the team composition and have more ways to counter it. And that's kind of it, basically. Life is difficult like that sometimes, you know? You feel. PTR update, hidden change or glitch. We noticed that while standing directly next to the enemy spawn doors, you would begin to take massive amounts of damage, out-damaging a Transcendence even. The weird part is that the damage never occurred on any tanks. The only thing we didn't touch was Orisa. Even healers would get damaged by standing next to the spawn door. Oh, whoa. I mean... I don't know. I don't know if I didn't see anything about it on the patch notes, so do you think it's a glitch or an intentional change? If it's an intentional change, it's weird that it isn't documented. To help protect against glitching into the enemy spawn and causing antics. It's been a known bug on University for a while. Sure. That sounds entirely possible. This is only happening on Oasis University. Alright, so it's just that map. Alright, great. Cool. Is there a tutorial or something? And holy shit, is it too stressful to play. I don't find it stressful, but I've played significantly less Overwatch just because it's such a tiring experience for me. Like, I'm a pretty laid-back guy, so I don't find it stressful, but I do find it exhausting a lot of the time. So I understand. Learn all the characters, but I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. I decided to try one placement match, and I regretted it immediately. No clue what was going on. I didn't even have anyone team and comment on it, and I wanted to leave halfway through because it was just so stressful. Does it ever get fun, or is this just how ranked is? I mean, when you don't know what's going on, it's gonna feel like a stressful experience, yeah, you know. When you're trying to learn how to play a game, or a competitive game at least, and you don't know what's going on, it's gonna be a very stressful experience for you, because you're figuring out what the fuck's going on while people are trying to kill you, and you're afraid that you're letting your teammates down, right? So it's gonna be a stressful experience for a while. You know, it's kind of that way. Like, yeah, there's a tutorial in the game, but it's frankly terrible, so, the best you can do is look up videos and stuff, pretty much, instead. And if it ever gets fun for you, that kind of depends on how competitive you are as a person, really, doesn't it? Or how much you enjoy the gameplay, I guess, because it could, you know, you don't necessarily have to be competitive to find the game fun to play, but... like, it'll depend on you, won't it? Like, I enjoy competitive games a lot, so, and I enjoy the feeling of incremental progress, so, I find it enjoyable. I find it extremely tiring to play Overwatch, so I prefer other games at this point, but it'll depend a lot on you as to how fun you find it. If you personally find, like, competitive environments to be stressful, it probably won't be fun for you. No. Like, try and get a little more acclimated to everything that happens in the game, more used to the heroes and the maps and everything, and then see if it becomes more enjoyable for you. But, like, if it's stressful for you because you're just not a very competitive person, or you're just, like, have, like, social anxiety or something, it probably won't be fun for you. That's just kind of how it is, you know? Help understanding SR. I don't understand a couple things. The game has a good data set for its algorithms regarding my MMR, so why does it always place me in low gold, and then send me on a 200, 300 SR losing streak immediately? My win-loss SR is annoying. I usually get 19 to 22 SR, but I always lose at least 25 SR for a loss. This happens regardless of which characters I choose. I used to main Moira, and I felt I was decent with her for my level, but my win rate was atrocious. I feel I'm not as good as Zen. My win rate is close to 50% with him. Zen is a better hero than Moira is, so that might have something to do with it. I'll choose Mercy or Bridge depending on team comp. I tried a shot call, but at my level I find it largely useless. The most common issue is my team running into enemy comp being mismatched, me asking a DPS or tank to switch to a different one, getting ignored or shot down, and switching to a different healing job anyway. I can see what the problem is, but I can't fix it, either due to my lack of mechanics or my teammates' unwillingness to switch. And I'm talking super basic stuff, like asking someone to help heal for healers, and not going double sniper into double shields in a bastion. I like to minimize my SR losses on defeat and maximize it on wins, but the opposite happens. So I don't know what to do. I'd like to just play better and get out of it, but every game is either super close or me getting stomped. It's rare that I get a game where my team rolls through. I mean, I find this sort of thing very tiring. Why, exactly, does the system always place me in low gold and then send me on a losing streak? As if it was somehow completely beyond your control that you went on this losing streak, you know? It wasn't me. It was the SR system, somehow. Remember that post we read a couple of weeks ago that was just the most tinfoil hat thing I'd have read in years? It's very tiring. I mean, so the reason for the losing more than you're gaining is because it uses a performance-based SR system. So the better/worse your stats are dictates how much SR you get. And it decides this by comparing your stats to people of a similar level to you. So this is why DPS, if you can play a DPS well, typically are seen as being easier to climb with because they have more ways to excel stat-wise than the other heroes do. Because if you're playing Mercy, you don't have as many stats to excel in compared to someone like a Genji who can excel in damage, kills, objective eliminations, objective time, right? If you're Mercy, you've basically got healing, and that's it. So that's why people find, say, DPS are easier to climb with because of the performance-based SR system. They'll also say it's easier to climb with because you can solo carry as a DPS, but you do need to be, like, really fucking good to do that, so that's not really true. So that's why you'll gain more than you lose, and that's the thing as well, is, like, if you lose, you probably didn't do as well compared to people of your level, so you probably will get punished more in that situation. You know, it's difficult like that sometimes. The idea is just if you play consistently well, it won't be an issue, because you'll win more than you lose as long as you play consistently well. It's a team-based game, so there's only so much you can do to win with your teammates, right? Like, sometimes you'll lose and there will have genuinely been nothing you can do about it, because it was your teammates, for one reason or another, being bad or fucking you over. Happens. It's a team-based competitive game, so your SR is always going to be an estimate, right? I mean, even if it's a single, like, a 1v1, right? It's still going to be an estimate, but there are no other factors at play, right? If you're playing a fighting game, your rating is your rating. Nothing has affected it other than how well you personally played, so there's less variables. But you just kind of have to, you know, you're playing a team-based game, so you have to acknowledge that, like, sometimes you're going to lose a game and it's going to be out of your control. You have to just kind of learn to deal with that. And if you can't learn to deal with that, maybe it's not the game for you. Maybe it's not the game for you. But that's why you'll gain more than you lose sometimes, or lose more than you gain. It's because of the performance-based SR system. And I still don't know if this is true, but I've heard it enough times that I feel like there's probably something to it. I've heard that the biggest decider for how much SR you gain is time spent on fire. And I don't know if that's true. I haven't gazed upon Blizzard's holy algorithm myself or anything, so I don't know. But I've heard a lot of people say that. So there must be something to it at least. But then you can also say, well, if you were on fire a lot, your other stats are probably really good as well, so it might just still be the performance-based SR system. But I've heard time on fire is the biggest decider. You know, it's not the algorithm's fault you went on a massive losing streak, okay? It's not the algorithm's fault that happened, because the algorithm isn't deciding how you play, unfortunately. So, should I continue playing placements? It's my third time trying competitive. I played comp in Season 11-14, and I didn't finish off the placement matches. This season I did 4 games and went 2-2. I think 2 losses are already making me a failure. Dude, chill the fuck out. Should I wait another season for improvement, or continue doing it while Oh, my God, my dude. My dude. I think 2 losses are already making me a failure. My dude. What the fuck? Do you want to, like, never lose a game? Like, obviously you do want to never lose a game, but, like, be realistic. What are you waiting for? The season you go 10-0? Like, if you want to improve, you gotta play the fucking game, my man. You can't just go, I lost 2 games in placements. Might as well wait till next season now. Like, come on, my man. Just play the game. It's not the end of the world. You know, it's very liberating, and I mean, you know, it's hard to switch this off in your mind, I get it. It's not an issue I have, because the joy I take from, like, competitive games is seeing my own incremental improvement, right? So this is not an issue for me. But you will find your life is significantly enriched while playing games like this, if rather than playing to win, you play to improve. And you say, well, why are you playing competitive if you're not playing to win? It's the same fucking thing, isn't it, my man? If you're playing to improve, you're also trying to win. The thing is, it's just how you have your... It's just an adjustment on your outlook, right? Because people get so stressed out about their number, right? They see their SR and they, like, attach their entire life's worth to this number, right? This holy assessment of your skill. And they get so invested in it, but, like, it's so much easier if you just don't give a fuck about the number, and you just really only care about improving yourself personally, because then you won't be so stressed out about your win-loss and about your fucking number and everything. If you're just like, I'm trying to get better, because I want to be better at the game, that's so much more liberating, and so much less stressful and anxiety-inducing, right? And, you know, that's hard, especially if it's a game you're trying to play. Like, it's the first time with a competitive game, especially, like, in that genre, right? Because a lot of people came to Overwatch and it was their first FPS experience. So that's going to naturally be very hard for them, right? Because they need to get used to a lot of things within the FPS genre. It's not a big deal for me, because I've played FPS games since I was honestly too young to be playing a lot of FPS games, so it's not a problem for me. I played TF2 for like 7 fucking years, right? Like, no big deal for me. But if you come in, and it's your first FPS game, you're gonna, like, have a really bad time for a while, because you need to get used to so many different, just fundamental aspects of the game. And you really shouldn't, like, if you're in that kind of situation, you should really not get too hung up on your SR, because you should just be worrying, like, alright, I just need to get used to playing an FPS game, right? And then as you get used to that, and you just improve, your SR will climb. And it might be a slow process, it might be a really slow process, depending on, like, both on who you are, and how much experience you have with the genre. Because I started playing a fighting game, and I've tried to play fighting games so many times previously, right? But I've never been able to do it, because the experience of learning to play fighting games is so incredibly depressing. It's you getting absolutely fucking annihilated, just slam dunked for hundreds, if not thousands of matches before you even know what the fuck's going on, right? So I started playing Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I was like, this is the one. This is the fighting game I'm going to learn how to play. And I fucking learned how to play that fighting game, alright? I'm still not incredible, you know, I'm still never gonna be on stage next to Sonic Fox, right? Like, going, like, fucking... landing in top 8 at EVO or anything like that. I'll never be that kind of player. But I got to Living Legend rank, and I'm like, I'm happy. I feel like I know how to play this fighting game, right? And you want to know how many games it took before I had a positive win ratio? It took me 3,500 games before I had a positive win ratio. Because you have you have to learn these kind of things. And you can imagine this was a very depressing experience, right? Like, just playing 3,000 plus games and losing the majority of them is not an enjoyable experience. But I could see myself improving as time went by, so I was fine with that. And I saw the number attached to me, and I went, that number's really bad. That sucks. But I didn't go like, oh god, oh why, oh I'm only in silver, I should be in gold, it's the fucking algorithm. You gotta learn to just be like, you don't care so much about the number. You just care about improving yourself, and life's so much more enjoyable that way. It's so, you can play a video game and be like, not angry about it. Isn't that incredible? You could be playing a video game and be enjoying the experience of playing the video game. Isn't that mind-boggling? I know, absolutely incredible. So there's some hot tech for you. Just try to not care as much, as he said, as if it's actually that easy. I consider myself extremely lucky to not be a very salty person. I used to be a lot saltier, but I've worked on that, and now I don't care as much, and it's very, very nice. Is there any way to change the small white dot that appears when charging up Doomfist's rocket punch into something more visible? How extraordinarily specific. I have no idea. What is Ash 1-to-1 zoom sensitivity? I don't know. I played quite a lot of Ash. I don't know, because I've never really worried about that, to be honest with you, because I pretty much just had my sensitivity, and I zoomed, I'm like, alright, this is what my zoom sensitivity is now, pretty much. And I just kind of got used to it. So, I don't know. I don't know. Uncontrollable anger keeping me from playing. I'm letting a game ruin my life. Any advice? I'm mostly here to vent, since I doubt there's any advice to help me out at this point. Would love to hear if anyone else is gonna... Alright, so let's try and read it a little bit more thoroughly, since the TLDR didn't really say anything. Since Season 1, started playing around the first summer event. First FPS game I'd ever gotten into. Mostly just a Sims gamer before. Pretty chill, both in game and... I don't know if something in this game somehow triggered anger issues in me that were previously dormant, if I just started developing anger in my adult life. Coincidentally, around the same time I started playing, it started acting up after playing a few seasons in competitive. Once I started getting decent at the game, and taking it mildly serious, I started getting more frustrated playing on losing bad teams. It's progressively gotten worse and worse. I've tried taking breaks from it, but recently, I came back to the game and I found myself getting angry and borderline screaming after only 3 quick play matches. When I first started having anger problems, it would take me a while before my anger started seeping in. I could play for hours, but I didn't know when to stop. I've broken 2 TVs and several controllers from getting angry in the past. My significant other has threatened to break up with me multiple times. I've gotten better with turning the game off before the anger gets that bad, but I've noticed the anger has gotten a shorter fuse and I can't seem to play the game at all. I don't know what to do. I've really enjoyed the game and its fun moments, and I've put a lot of time into it, but I feel like I can't touch it ever again. I may get into a match with a positive attitude, feeling like I don't care if I win or lose, but by the end of the match, I'm struggling not to break something. Even with all these issues, I still struggle to stay away for more than a month at a time. Like, sometimes it's not worth it, my man. Like, if you playing a game, right? Like, here's some real talk for you, right? Like, if you're playing a video game, and you find yourself getting genuinely emotionally distressed by that game, you should probably not play that game, right? You should probably not do that. Because, just for one reason, like, if you get really angry at the video game, there are other people who just get, like, really fucking sad, you know? Like, there are people who, like, have been reduced to tears after playing the game for one reason or another, because, like, they lost, or because, like, people were saying terrible things to them, like, you know, all that kind of thing. Like, if the game is emotionally distressing to you, one way or the other, you should probably not play that game. Like, really. Like, life's too short, you know, to be playing a video game and then coming away from the experience miserable. like, it might just not be worth it, you know? Like, and, you know, that's something that happens where, like, once you start taking the game seriously, the better you get at the game, it's really easy to start getting angry at other people because they don't know something that seems so obvious to you, right? Like, it's just common sense. Why the fuck don't they know? Insert X thing here, right? Like, why don't they know Reinhardt shouldn't just charge through the choke point to try and push in, right? Like, why don't they know this? It's so simple. And, you know, you just kind of have to acknowledge, like, alright, I know that, they might not know that, you know? And, you know, it can also be true as well, where, like, the more you know about a game, you can get angry at yourself, because, like, Brandon's playing my fighting game, I'm like, why can't you tech the throw, you fucking dumbass? Jesus Christ, you knew it was coming, and yet you just couldn't push the fucking button, could ya? You know, like, it can happen that way as well, but, like, it might just not be worth it. It's a video game. It's meant to be an enjoyable experience. And if you're leaving, like, if you finish playing the game, and you're miserable, or furious, or breaking things, it might just not be worth it, my man. Like, maybe you should just try and find something else that you enjoy doing, because there's probably something else you enjoy doing. And, like, hopefully it doesn't make you miserable, right? Like, life's too short to do that, you know? Do something you enjoy. Overwatch so laggy these days, I don't know. Honestly, I have not played enough to know. Losing more SR than gaining this season, even though I'm above 3,000. That's extraordinarily fucking short, isn't it? It's the performance. Well, no, it's not the performance-based SR, is it? Because it stops after Diamond. Or does it stop after Masters? Well, if it's I mean, your MMR can still affect you, right? Because I've been, like, Masters decayed down to 3,000, and I'll be gaining 50 SR per win and losing, like, 2, because it looks at my MMR and goes, why are you 5,000 SR below where we think you should be? That's not right. We gotta get these two as close together as quickly as possible. So your MMR might be out of whack, and that's why. Because I'm pretty sure the performance-based thing stops at Diamond now. Yeah, it's probably an MMR issue. Climbing steadily, but constantly anxious. Okay, so this season, I took Overwatch seriously, and I only played Ana and Lucio, and I managed to climb from 2,500 to 2,962. That's pretty good. But most of these games I played with a friend and didn't really feel like those games were bad when we played. However, when I played on my own, I felt like I would lose a lot more, and it affected me a lot more. I've set my mind on climbing no ifs or buts, but I'm gonna get to Masters this season without a doubt. That's a great attitude to have. How can I get over my anxiety playing solo, other than sending my VoD reviews to other players? How can I personally review? How should I set up my practice? Well, I mean, if you're watching your own games back, so the obvious thing to do is look for mistakes, you know, like, really easy one to start with is, well, I died, so why did I die, right? And then you try to decide, and you want to try and decide if it was a, decision mistake or a mechanical mistake. Like, did I make a bad decision? Yes, no. And if you made the correct decision but executed it wrong, hey, no problem, then you made the right decision, you just need to practice mechanical execution, right? But if you made a mistake decision-wise, then it's important to identify that and then figure out what you should have done instead of that. So that's an easy one to start. But you also want to look for the opportunities that you missed at the time, because it's a lot easier when you're not playing the game. When you're just sitting down, detached, watching the footage, to go, oh, well, you could have done X, Y, Z here, right? And then that would have been better. So try and look, rather than just focusing on the mistakes, try and find the things that you missed at the time. And then when you're in a similar situation in the future, you're more likely to notice it next time. So that's, like, the easiest thing to do. Setting up your practice, I mean, just play the game. You know, I have a very straightforward view on this, where I'm just like, just play the game, man. You know, just try and like decide what you want to get good at, like the hero, the role, whatever, and just like try and focus on doing that by playing the game. I have a very straightforward view on this. I don't go into any of the like funky outside stuff. I'm just like, I want to get good at this, pick that, practice it. And then practice it some more, and then practice it some more, and then practice it some more. And I have a very straightforward method here. It really is just like grind it out. And just try and think about, just, you know, if you're reviewing it, just try and think about what you missed. Try and think about what you could have done better, you know? Look for the mistakes, identify if it was decision or mechanical, and then try and find the opportunities you missed at the time, because both are equally important. And that's all I got for you, really. It seems my quick play MMR is significantly higher than my comp MMR. Could someone explain auto-aim interactions to me? Like, sim torb turrets. Who does the torb turret target? The closest enemy, whoever shoots at it, whoever torb shoots at. If some sim turret hooks onto someone, does it stay hooked onto them until they die, or does it ever switch targets? Only if it, like, breaks line of sight or they go out of range. Otherwise, it'll stay on them forever, pretty much, yeah. Do turrets prioritize objects over players? I don't think so. I don't think it prioritizes objects. I'm pretty sure it's just like proximity, pretty much. Does Bob shoot who he runs into first, or is it based purely on proximity? See, I'm trying to think about that one, because now I'm trying to think when I've seen Bob punch someone in the air. I'm trying to figure out who... how he decides which ones to shoot first. Because like, the thing is, if he runs into one person, they're probably the closest one to him. So, you know, that'll be the reason. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's basically just proximity. I don't really know the intricacies of these interactions fully, but I'm pretty sure it's basically entirely proximity based until some other, like, basically you lose line of sight. Yeah, first sim turret. However, torb turret does target whoever shoots with his left. Whoever torb shoots with his left click. Okay, is that a recent change? Because I don't feel like that always. This is a change that came with his rework last year. Okay, alright, okay, I thought so. Okay, I was like, I swear it didn't used to whoever he targeted. All the other turrets work based on line of sight within their effective range. They will fire at the first thing that enters their line of sight and his range. It is possible to get two Bobs to target each other, in which case, if no one else comes between them, they will simply shoot each other until one is dead. Okay. I thought it was proximity-based, but I don't see that many turret players, to be honest with you. Roadhog, good counter, Immortality Field. Baptist or Immortality Field isn't a shield, and Roadhog can hook combo them by pulling them out of the field. That's true. That's a good point right there. He can just yank them straight out of the field. No lie. No lie. And if they're in the Immortality Field, they're probably feeling like they're a god, and they can do whatever they want, right? So it's probably easier to hook them on average when they're in there. Best Ana kill combo. Separated from my team. It's... the ideal combo, I'm just trying to parse it in my mind right now, is shoot, melee, E, shoot. Melee again. Yeah, so shoot, grenade, punch, shoot. I mean, if it's someone like Tracer, that's as much as you get in, pretty much, but, like, it's like, yeah, it's shoot, E, punch, you know, animation cancel, all this shit. And it doesn't add delay to the next shot, so then you shoot, and then you punch again. And that's, like, the most you can do, pretty much. That's how it goes, right? You can't do it. That doesn't work. I'm pretty sure that's the best you can do. Because you can't do that. No, yeah, that's it. That's it. Where's the post-post VoD reviews? Hey, just, you know, send them to a cool guy, like, you know, hey, yeah. How to approach different comps as Winston. Oh, it's a guide, it's not a video. Is it a video guide? No, it's just a lot of words. I have little to no opportunity to learn new heroes, and it deeply annoys me. But it sucks. People never play seriously. It's not even fun. But if I go competitive, I just do poorly, lose, and everyone gets mad. I don't know many heroes. I'm always forced to... What do I do? Well, I mean... For me, it's easy, because I don't care what my SR is, so I've got no problem just picking them in competitive and getting fucked for a while, basically. Yeah, I'll lose some games, but whatever. It'll even out soon enough, right? No problem for me. But for some reason, for some people, rather, that's a big issue. So, you know, people always say to go to quick play, but quick play is trash. You don't learn anything because you can't even move around the map in quick play the same way you would in competitive because the enemy team is like 3 snipers and a Mei, right? Like, it's some shit like that. So you don't really learn anything from quick play. If you're looking for raw mechanical in practice, you can just play like deathmatch, like free-for-all deathmatch, because that's just all fighting all the time. So you can work on like your mechanical execution with the hero. And that's like the best place to do that, pretty much. But like, other than that, like you got make another account, pretty much. And if you're on PC, that means you have to buy another copy of the game. If you're on console, it's a lot easier, as I'm told, but because you don't have to buy another copy of the game. But yeah, like, those are your options, pretty much. You got quick play, which is terrible. You got just playing competitive and deal with the fact you're gonna lose. And you got free-for-all or make another account. And that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, you know. People have proposed, like, people have suggested putting, like, an in-between queue that's, like, a competitive rule set, but with a no SR gain, right? Like, no SR system tied to it. So then the question is, how do you get people to take that seriously? Right? It's already hard enough to get people to take competitive seriously. How are we going to get them to take the fake competitive seriously, right? You know. Can a high rank stomp through low rank? Absolutely. That's different from League of Legends and in Overwatch. A high elo player will win 60 to 70% of games. Will have a harder time in lower elos compared to people. No. A high elo player can absolutely stomp through the lower ranks. I've done it, right? And not even on heroes I play, right? Because I've been to Masters several times. It's all good. It's terrible, actually, the entire way up. Don't worry, every elo's elo hell. Just for different reasons. But I've played on an account that was in bronze. And you know what I did? I picked Soldier, and I was an untouchable god of death. Because I knew where to stand. I knew how to shoot the bad men. They didn't know how to shoot the bad men. They didn't know where to stand. I literally just picked Soldier. And this was when Soldier was bad as well, by the way. I picked Soldier. And I just stood on the high ground and just watched the ants scampering around below me and would just shoot them. And they didn't know what to do. And like sometimes Winston would come to shoot me, and then I would look at Winston and go, "Where's your bubble, man?" And he'd go, "I put it in the choke point." And I'd go, "Shit, dude. That's unfortunate for you." Then I put my biotic field down, just stand there, and click on the Winston, because he's trying to dive me alone without his bubble. And he's like, "Why can't I kill Soldier? I don't understand." Oh, fuck, you killed me. Right? Like, you'd absolutely stomp through low ranks if you're a high elo player. The thing is, you need to be several ranks above the rank that you're in, right? Because I can stomp my way, like, up until plat. And then that's the point where, like, I won't just wreck the game solo anymore. At that point, like I can't just like single-handedly win the game anymore. If I was like a Grandmasters player or like top 500, I could probably still do it. But like me, no, that's the point where I like can't just like stomp it anymore. But like a high elo player can definitely stomp low elo games. I have done it. I literally won like 25 games in a row. It was no issue. Got up to like gold in like a day and a half, no problem. It's you can definitely do it. People like to say it's impossible. You can definitely still do it. How offensive should I be as Bridget? I play around, for example, one of the heroes whenever I see a Widow or an Anna away from their team, I go over and kill them. Okay, fair enough. I just mentioned one on the bridge of Lijiang Tower Garden, and both teams were fighting on point. I would walk over my way with shield and kill them. Is this the right call or no? I mean, it can definitely be. It depends on how much value that person's giving their team. Like, if it's like their own main healer is Anna, or their only healer is Anna, and you go over and kill Anna, great job. You killed their main healer. It's going to be really hard for them to win the fight now. The question is, what's happening while you're doing that, pretty much? Because if you're Bridget, you're probably not the main healer, so you don't necessarily have to worry about that. But you do have to worry about other things, like, is my backline getting killed by flankers while I'm doing this? You know, like, are there divers giving my team a lot of trouble while I'm doing this? In which case, it might not be worth you going all the way over to do that, because by the time you do that, your team might be dead. So, it can be right, it just depends on, like, what's happening while you're doing that, pretty much. Like, you're just like, if your team's getting killed, no, it wasn't worth it. If your team's still like, okay, then it was worth it. Who are the most viable DPS characters in Diamond and above? I like to play DPS. I used to play Reaper while I was in Silver and Gold. Lately I've been using Tracer, who I love, but it's a Feast or Fan most games I use her. So, the most viable ones, Diamond and above, Genji's good at all ranks. The flankers in general, if you're good at the flankers, are always going to be good if you can play them well, pretty much, because they've got just so much room to outplay even their counters. So if you're good at them, they'll always be, like, consistently a viable pick. McCree's a good one, Far's a good one, Ashe, if you're good at Ashe. Widow's good if you're good. You know, the caveat is you will have to be good at these heroes that I say, but, you know, Widow, Hanzo, Ashe, McCree, Tracer, Genji, Sombra. I mean, the straight answer is they all are, but, those are gonna be the easiest ones, pretty much. Depending on the map, Mei also is a good one. But the most consistent ones, I think, are Genji, Pharah, who are just, like, basically always good, pretty much. Let's see. Can I climb out of bronze as D.Va, Mercy, Moira? I don't recommend playing Mercy until you get to, like, gold. I say this a lot. Try not to play Mercy till you're gold, because the supports are the role that is most beholden to their teammates being somewhat good. But Mercy is the hero in the game that has the lowest agency over the game, right? Like, there are a lot of situations you're in as Mercy where you can't do anything because it's up to your teammates to do something, right? So I recommend not playing Mercy until you can expect a baseline level of competency, which I think starts happening around gold, right? Probably not like immediately, like 2000. Like, all right, here I am, I've done it. Mercy time, like 2,150-ish, you know, like a little ways into gold. Then the reason for that is that Mercy is basically an amplifier for her teammates, right? Like, if your teammates are good, you can make your teammates great. But if your teammates are mediocre, you can just make them a little less mediocre, right? So, like, I don't recommend playing Mercy. She has such little agency. So I recommend playing Moira over Mercy. But yep, you can absolutely climb playing Moira and D.Va. Those are two of the heroes I frequently recommend. When people are like, what are the best heroes for climbing out of low SRs? I will go like Winston, D.Va, Moira, Anna, as long as you're good at her, and Bridget, because they're just high impact, easy to play heroes pretty much. Why does no one like to play 3-3? Because it's fucking boring. It's a fucking boring team composition. It is 3 tanks, run at 3 tanks, and then just, or if they've got 3 tanks, it's just like 3 tanks, 3 healers, and you run at an unorganized team, it's just like, they try ineffectually to like bat you away, right? Like, it's like fucking trying to beat a Sherman tank off with a sharp stick, right? Like, they won't fuck off. And if it's 3-3 versus 3-3, it's 3 tanks, it's 3 beefy boys run up to 3 beefy boys and fucking hit each other with pool noodles for a while until one of the team's healers fucks up, right? Like, it's so boring. It's just so boring. Fortunately, it still doesn't really happen much outside of organized play and very high elos, so not an issue really, but it's just fucking boring, man. As the most efficient thing tends to be. It's just fucking boring. Batista versus other supports. I've heard the Batista is pretty powerful, but is he as good as the other supports? In healing, he fits in the main healing category. People have been saying that. I didn't think he'd fit the main healer, but I have heard that he's good enough to be a main healer. I didn't think he would be looking at him on paper. His damage is pretty impressive, actually. That one I saw. Yeah, like, his gun is fucking good. Like, he's got a good fucking gun. Doing 25 each. Arguably better than Genji's primary fire. I don't think that's even arguable, but yes. Because it's just like... hit scan Genji left click, isn't it? So it's better Genji, yes. Especially since it's hit scan. This is more damage per second than even Zenyatta does. But that isn't even the good part. His passive is actually pretty impressive. He has more vertical mobility than any other support. That's really cool as well. I think it's really sick that there is a healer that actually has good vertical mobility, because that's something that, like, most of them lack. Well, they all lack, except Mercy, isn't it? And, if you count Fade jumping, you know, and Lucio hopping up the wall, I guess, you know. Most effective anti-dive ability in the game, because it forces the focus onto a non-discordable, non-headshotable, fairly small target, allowing for a lot of stall, more than enough for a competent team to punish the dive, quite similarly for Goats, as is similarly long. And considering that neither Mura nor Mercy can really compete, that really leaves Ana. She has better range, more consistent damage at range, Sleep Dart, Nade. It's probably not true, honestly, but hey. And most importantly, Bionade, which... But does this really match Batista? Not really, although Baptiste lacks CC and doesn't have an anti-heal. He has the mobility that allows him to survive against a dive or Goats. And access high ground that characters like Ana would drool over. True, it's true. He gets to reset on the high ground without taking like 20 minutes to do so, like Ana does. His boost wall thingy can double damage and healing. Maybe this is the start of a Baptiste-Ana strategy, using Immortality Drone and Bio-boosted Baptiste heals to offset the lack of a defensive ultimate. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. That might be good enough, actually, yeah. They are the two highest value supports in the game, seemingly. So with, say, a bunker strategy framing them, could they do great things together? But maybe I'm crazy. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those things where the theory craft doesn't always work out, but I do sit there and picture that in my mind now. And boy, yeah, they would be able to output like a disgusting amount of healing together, wouldn't they? And I mean, it's like, if you had Ana Batista on the same team, then Batista could basically just be the off-healer and be like, he's left-click people, right? Doesn't have to worry about the healing so much if the Ana's the other healer, so like, hey, it's kind of like getting an extra DPS, isn't it? Plus the great utility attached to him. Yeah, it seems really strong. I do think Batista's gonna be really strong. And you know, people have made the argument as everything seems overpowered on paper, which, you know, true enough, but like, when I think about Batista, it's just like, it just sounds so dirty, right? Because I saw the argument, someone was like, everything sounds overpowered on paper, because if you think about, and they use the example of Reaper, where it's like, so he has a he has a teleport ability, and high close range damage, so he can walk up behind your teammates, left click you in the back, and then Wraith form to get back to his team. Doesn't that just sound disgustingly overpowered? And my answer is, no, not really, but, you know, that was the argument they decided to make, where they were like, anything can sound overpowered on paper. I am not quoting exactly what they said, they framed it a little better than that, but, you just look at Batista on paper, and in just everything seems so good. It's just like a DPS that does a lot of healing with some incredible utility not seen previously and fantastic mobility. It's just like, on paper, it's everything you could want a support to be, isn't it? So, how to practice DPS in the comp setting. We already kind of talked about that, so I'm not going to agonize over it again, really. Is it just basically the exact same thing? Yep, people will nitpick every... Yeah, DPS mains are the first people that are going to get blamed for shit. The enemy team aren't dying. That's obviously a DPS-related issue, said the Reinhardt, charging into the enemy team. Constantly swinging, doesn't even know what right-click does. Wonders why he has gold damage. Yeah, like, you know... So do people in this position just play through the quad DPS games? I don't really care about rank. I mean, the idea is like, yeah, you know, that'll happen, especially if you're gonna insta-lock the DPS, but also it's kind of like... People that do that are kind of like hedging on their teammates backing it down before they do. You know, they're like, well, I could go quad DPS now, or I could change to a healer or a tank, right? And, people will back down, you know, is the idea pretty much. You know, it's so, you know, it's a shitty thing to do still. But like, that's the idea. Is there a significant role for main tanks on a double sniper team in the metal tiers? For good or ill, that currently run double sniper in metal tiers, bronze through plat. This is well known to Overwatch University. The role of main again, well, but snipers don't need tanks to create space for them. That's not really true. They create their own space through positioning and elevation. Put differently, Widow is usually not relying on Rhine. No. She's not looking to... No, you're right. That she's not looking to Rhine to bail her out from stuff. The thing is that that you do still make space for the snipers, because if the front line's doing nothing, then they can just run right up to the snipers, is the thing. Right? If, like, they work better with, like the shield tanks can work, because they can always, like, just stand behind the shield if they have to. It's not that weird to see, like, the attacking team, the Widowmaker just stood behind the Reinhardt, you know? But, they work better with the dive snipers, the dive tanks, because they're still making space by being, you know, disruptive and all that good stuff that we've talked about infinity billion times before. But, so you're still making space for them, but you're also, like, doing a lot of damage to people, right? So it's like the snipers can set up kills for the dive tanks, and the dive tanks can set up kills for the snipers, because if the sniper wings somebody, just like a body shot, they're basically dead. So if a Winston's right next to them, he goes, sick, zzz, you know? Or the Winston can be in there going zzz on someone, and then Widow goes, oh, sick, that person's half health, shoots him in the nuts, and they dies, right? Like, you know. So they work better with the dive tanks because of this synergy, where it's just more aggressive, basically. And if they're worrying about divers, they can't worry about snipers as freely. So you do still make space for them, it's just not as obvious that it's happening. Question, Doomfist question about PTR knockback changes. What they are supposed to do. Does that mean that uppercut now will always put your enemy in front of you and not in strange spots? I don't know. That's too specific for me to know. My number one tip for climbing, playing corners, and using map architecture as cover is very good. Yes, apparently this is a video. We like to look at videos around here. We don't ever watch the video, but we go to the video and we go, hey, that's what it's called, and it was by Cappuccino, which is a very funny name, but his icon is not a Starbucks cup with a Kappa face on it, so frankly, what's the fucking point? But there you go, playing corners. Go peep it if you want to. How to fix quick play MMR? So we're done today. We'll call it good on that one, I think. So thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. If for some reason you enjoyed the video and managed to make it all this way through, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future, and I hope you found the video helpful.